Welcome to the November offering of Lunch and Learn from the Social Action Office here at the Diocese of Davenport. I'm Kent Ferris, Director of Social Action here in the office. And we will begin in prayer, and then I will introduce you to our speaker today. And it's a prayer in light of upcoming Veterans Day and also specific to the content that we will share. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, bless our veterans and all who serve our nation defending our freedom. For those who bravely gave their lives, grant them eternal rest. For those who are serving, give them courage. For those who served, we offer our gratitude. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. A little backstory about how I came to know of the work being undertaken and the person who will present today. One of the great joys that I have is traveling to the many different parishes across the diocese of our 22 counties of the Diocese of Davenport and meeting people, um, maybe partly because of the work that I've done in this office for 15 years, also as a deacon. I'm always very curious to meet people and to know what they're passionate about, what they know about. And it was by way of a trip to Mount Pleasant, actually two trips. And one was attending the first Mass for Father Ross Epping at his new parish assignment. And then I believe also at a Mass at the Old Threshers reunion. In both of those cases, the speaker that we have with us today was serving as the lector. And then there was also an opportunity for a meal and fellowship afterwards. And I sat at her table and asked her when she's not lecturing at Mass at St. Alphonsus in Mount Pleasant what she does. And so one of the great joys is understanding where we have local parishioners who have the passion and the expertise and knowledge, because I really think it's important for uh, those types of talents to be shared. Some of them are out within the greater community, and I think it's important for the local parish to know the extent to which parishioners are involved. But then the collective wisdom is such that we can learn other efforts that are taking place all across the diocese. And so, without a whole lot more in way of backstory, I do want to introduce Deb Wells, Debbie. She is with the Hawkeye Area Community Action Program and works as part of a grant called Supportive Services for Veteran Families, SSVF. Works on the initiative called Operation Home, a program that assists homeless veterans and their families. They help them with locating and securing housing placement and also assist those veteran families who are imminently at risk of losing their nighttime residence through case management support. With that, I welcome you, Debbie.
Well, thank you very, very much, Kent. And I am honored to be here to share with you what we do. So my agency is actually located in Hiawatha. I do live in Mount Pleasant. I personally cover the areas of Washington County and Johnson County. We also have Lynn County, Iowa, Benton, Jones, Blackhawk, Buchanan, Delaware, Dubuque, and Jackson. We work in coordination with Humility of Homes. It's Humility Homes and Services that is concentrated in the Quad City area. And I had asked Blair to share what their service territory is. And they cover Scott, Clinton, and Muscatine counties, as well as Rock Island, Henry, Mercer, Whiteside, and Lee counties in Illinois. So what do? We find homeless veterans, whether we go out into the field, and I have done that. I've found them in under bridges, in abandoned buildings, in their cars, vehicles, and we try to offer them services. Um, we we do an intake form to begin with. So we have to determine their veteran eligibility. So I have learned over the years, I've personally been doing this for HACAP for 12 years when we first received the grant. You don't want to ask someone, are you a veteran? Because sometimes they think that their service to America doesn't constitute them being a veteran. So I have learned, ask a person, have you served in the military? At any capacity. We can then determine if they are eligible for our services. For SSVF, they have had to have at least 1 day of active service. Then they are eligible for our program. They may not be eligible for VA healthcare, but they are eligible for services to find housing or to keep them stably housed where they are. Each initiative has different guidelines. So I can only share what my program offers to the veterans in our community and in our service territory of 12 counties. If a veteran is eligible, there are also an income guidelines, and they can earn up to 80% of the AMI in each county that they're in. So every county has a different AMI. The guidelines, the income guidelines for each county are a little bit different, such as Johnson County is higher than what would be in Washington County or even in Dubuque County or Buchanan County. So once we determine they're eligible with their veteran status, we can work with any status of discharge. We ask for the DD 214. Most of the times they have it. If they don't, we help them obtain it. We also work very closely with the VA. So if they don't have access to their own DD 214, we can do other reports through the VA called a Squares report, a HINC report to determine eligibility, and then look at their income. If they're close to being maybe over income, I don't worry about that. I'm like, let's let compliance worry about. Let's see what we can do for you. Sometimes I will send the income documentations to compliance first to have them score that in order to proceed to do the outreach application to have them eligible. Our agency chooses that only our housing director determines if someone is going to be enrolled in the program. If they're not eligible for our services, we're not going to just say, oh, sorry, we can't help you. There are other things that we can do. We can work with other agencies in our area. We can work with other funding sources to meet their needs, even if it's not me personally. I don't work with civilians. I only work with veterans. So back to when they are eligible, the veteran tells me who is in their household. So if they have a partner, if they have a girlfriend, a spouse, children, it's fine. Whoever they say is in my program, they then are all enrolled. They have to make sure they know their date of birth and their social security number. And then we proceed. So once we submit that application for eligibility and they're approved, then they are, if they're in Washington or Johnson County, they become my client and I offer the case management support. Then we do the enrollment documents and we can begin the housing search. We are a housing first model. That's the first thing we want to do. We want to get them stably housed. Once they're stably housed, then we can look at all of the other aspects that they need. And I always word it, we're going to identify your needs and remove barriers as we proceed through this process. We work with private landlords in our area, which can offer a challenge because a lot of our veterans that we work with come with unique challenges. They do have PTSD. Some have military sexual trauma. They have traumatic brain injuries. They have substance abuse. If a veteran is not eligible for VA health care, but they are eligible for my program, then I have to work with civilian providers to meet all of those needs that they need, whether it's health care or psychiatric care or, a slew of other possibilities. So I have relationships that I work with shelters, that I work with the Abbey Center. I work with the University of Iowa, because we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks. We want to meet their needs, whatever they are. So once they are on my caseload, and right now I probably have a caseload about 40 different veterans. That doesn't include the other household members. Some have children, and they call me Grandma Deb. That's who I am to everyone. I'm Grandma Deb. So what my initiative offers, Operation Home, once we identify housing, I have to do a rent reasonableness request that I send to my compliance officer. She sends it back. Yes, this residence, whatever it is, meets rent reasonableness. Then I do an inspection, a traditional HUD inspection, to make sure that everything is operational before they are allowed to sign that rental agreement and move in. Once we have all those approvals in place, and sometimes I can do this in a day or two. Sometimes it takes longer to find the right landlord who's willing to rent to the veteran that I am presenting. I also offer landlord mediation. My landlords that I work with have come to trust the opinions and the observations that I have been able to determine through the course of working with them. And they know I will not lie to them. I will tell them these are the issues that we're dealing with. If there's any problems, the landlord knows, call me first. Let me step in. Let's fix the problem before it becomes a problem that you no longer want to work with and that you're going to evict them. So we try to prevent evictions and keep them stably housed for as long as possible. So I'm housing a veteran. I can pay a double deposit. I can pay first month's rent, probably more, but they have to meet with me in order for me to pay the next month's rent. I can pay up to 5 months rent in a 12-month period, or I can pay up to 8 months rent in a 3-year period. But anything over that 5 months, I have to get approval from my director as to why are they unable to pay their own rent after 5 months that I've paid full rent for them. I can also pay a utility deposit, 2 months of utility usage. I can buy them one brand new bed. If it's a full-size standard double, that's fine. I can just order that. If it needs to be a queen or a king, I have to get special approval from my director as to why we need a larger bed. And she almost always approves that. If they have a vehicle, I can do transportation assistance in that I have a vendor, one in Iowa City, and then I also have one in Marion in Lynn County when I house someone in Lynn County that they do a car repair estimate. Then they send that estimate to me. If it is under $1,000, I can submit that estimate to compliance, get it approved, then the work is done, we pay for it. If it's over $1,000, then I go back to the veteran, I say, okay, so we're over $1,000, you have a choice. We can write up a contract where you agree to pay the amount over the $1,000 to the vendor and that we pay the first 1,000, or you can go back to the vendor and you can have some line items deducted to take it down to 1,000 or less. So everything that the grant allows me to do, I try to do. There are a lot of holes there, such as I can get them a bed, but I cannot provide them with any bedding, with any pillows. I cannot get household items. I can't get cooking supplies. I can't get a bathroom. Sometimes landlords provide a shower curtain. Sometimes they don't. I cannot provide that. If they need clothing or anything special food, I can't provide any of that. So that's where I have to have my relationships established with community partners who offer those services. So I work very closely with Iowa Workforce. We have a veteran representative that will come and meet with my clients either at the Veterans Liberty Center in Iowa City. That's where my office is on Tuesdays or any other day I need. Or I can send them to her. They can meet with her in her office. She's been known to come to other, like she comes to Washington, she'll meet with them at the public library in Washington to get them signed up for her services for employment or voc rehab. If a veteran is eligible for VA healthcare, I can refer them to CWT through the VA, which is called compensated work therapy. When they get approved for that, the whole purpose is to have 6 months of training, whether it's working at the VA or it's working at an offsite in the community. They get paid like a minimum wage, but it's not taxable. It is not reportable. It's just money in their pocket. If they're not eligible for VA healthcare, then I have another program called HVRP that does the exact same thing for those veterans that are eligible for me. That they do the same thing as CWT. They usually work through the Goodwill and provide those job skills training, assessment, and placement. So that's kind of an overview. There are initiatives across the country. They all have, different names. Sometimes they just say SSVF, such as, we call ours Operation Home. Humility calls theirs Valor. If somebody is in my service territory and they want to move somewhere else, I can do the initial verification And then I can contact Blair, say they want to move to the Quad Cities. This is their DD 214, this is their income, they've signed a release form, and then I don't provide the transportation to get there, but I can go to the VA or I can go to another community resource that they can end up. Sometimes they've been known to come back and forth between the two of us more than once before we find the right housing placement for us. We have initiatives in Des Moines through heads, I don't know, it's in Polk County. We also have FAVA up in the very northern part of the state of Iowa. I can't say what assistance they offer because that's their initiative. What our funding comes from the VA out of Washington, D.C.
Right.
So, you know, we have expanded our service territory. We started out with 6 counties in the very beginning, 12 years ago. We now have 12 counties, but that doesn't mean that our funding has increased that much.
Wow.
So in the beginning, we were contracted to work with 98 veterans and their families. I
Right.
believe last year in our fiscal year, we ended up working with 198. That
Wow.
doesn't include the family members that go along. So, you know, I don't determine that funding, the Washington DC does.
Right.
So, and it's my director decides, you know, how much assistance, but at this point, we've been very consistent in
Right.
double deposits, 5 months of rent, utility deposit, 2 months of utility usage. So,
Yeah.
do you have any questions? I know that's a whole lot of
Yeah.
information.
We're gonna watch the chat, and I'm gonna make sure that we've got the ability to see that, or
Okay.
um and we've got just a hello from one of those that's watching.
Okay.
That's good. The one thing that I will say, Deb, is that there's it's really valuable for folks to know the extent to which the safety net is in place. And when I hear you talk, it reminds me of conversations that I've had with colleagues up here in the Quad Cities. Um, like a round table of service providers, and
Mhm.
I can walk away from that inspired by not only the services that are provided to individuals in need, but the extent to which the provider agencies talk to each other. And
Mhm.
though the Catholic Diocese of Davenport does not possess a traditional Catholic charities and provide as far as service provisions, we do know enough to know who the good neighbors are that do the work in order to provide adequate information and referral sources when people contact us. The other thing that you've mentioned is that the money coming by way of the VA administration and the number of people that are to be served, and you're actually doing twice the number,
Mhm.
it begins to speak to a part of our responsibilities with the 2 feet, the charity and the justice, and it's something that you yourself don't. It's not part of your regular work responsibilities, but when folks hear the work that you're doing in providing support to those that would be eligible, and yet it's the extent to which you can reach and provide is based on a federal budget. Now all of a sudden, when we look at the ways that we do legislative advocacy, if we know the ways that people are being served in congressional districts or in the state, or that they could be served with more, that now all of a sudden, when we make those legislative visits and we see particular bills that are related to funding, we can talk about the extent to which it affects our neighbors. And that's where, um, we just came out of an election on Tuesday, and we talk about faithful citizenship. And we always remind people that being a faithful citizen means being actively involved 365 days a year, and so this is an example of where knowing where there could be more could be
Mhm.
very helpful. The question is, yes, I believe you're actually a parishioner at St. Alphonsus in
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And I will, I do keep a stack of Holy Moments books. I cannot evangelize, but I always just make that available. If a veteran would like a copy,
right.
then it's there. They can take it. And I've had some of my veterans come back and say, thank you. It has changed how I look at my life.
And,
And
I
so it
would
gives
think,
me the chance
yeah,
to say, all right, was this a holy moment or an unholy moment?
right.
Let's string some more holy moments together, because my a lot of my veterans are addicted to substances, whether it's alcohol and meth. I just had a training with the Abbey Health Center
Mhm.
where we now have to carry the Narcan with us.
Right.
And we had to be trained on how to use it, because I did just have a veteran overdose a few weeks ago. I got to his house just minutes after it happened, and the police were saying my name, trying to figure out how to get a hold of me. And so then I had to work with the extended family, who it's a truly difficult time right now. And we had a doctor that reminded us, be prepared. Everything is laced with fentanyl. So for those veterans, our main objective is harm reduction. I can't tell them to stop, but I can try to reduce the harm that they receive and offer treatment. If they're a veteran, I have the Dom in Des Moines, I have St. Cloud in Minnesota. If they're not eligible for VA healthcare, then I have to go to my civilian counterparts to see what kind of services and if they would even be accepted into some of the treatment centers in our area.
When we talk about safety net, I think that
Mhm.
sometimes we do it at 30,000 feet, right? And so
10,000 feet.
in generic terms, but when you're talking about having to carry Narcan to be
Mhm.
able to bring somebody back from an overdose,
Mhm.
that makes it incredibly real.
It's
The other
very
thing I
real.
would mention, Deb, is that yeah, I mean, having served in the community prior to beginning work for the diocese, I can fully appreciate the limitations that one has on what one can say in your official capacities. But the type of support that your agency provides, the means of connecting with other community resources, is I think it's valuable for Catholics to know, but I also think ministerial associations could also benefit by kind of the refresher, because there will be moments when the population that you serve actually overlap with some house of worship, and so um, the strength of knowing all of the resources that a potential client has, including a faith, can be profoundly important. I got a
Yeah.
question coming from
Hey.
one of those on the call. How many veterans do you typically serve in a year?
In a year. Well, for my agency, we served 198 to the last count that I received. That doesn't account for family members
Hmm.
associated with that. For me personally, um, I typically carry about 35 to 40 on my caseload every month. So
Wow.
it seems that when I'm able to exit because they're stable, or we do have another program, it's called Shallow Subsidy,
Hmm.
that the VA has given us. They're still under that SSVF umbrella, that they have to have income, or I can't refer them to Shallow Subsidy. But if they do have the income and I turn them over, um, they pay all their utilities. So that's why I always, after a couple of months, I want them paying their own utilities to the best of their ability or applying for LIHEAP during
Right.
the winter months. And so they're accustomed to that one payment, and then they have to pay half of their rent. And
Mm.
we can do that for anywhere from 12 to 24 months, minus the months that I have paid full
Mm.
rent for them. So I always tell them, I'm not going to kick you off the cliff. I'm going to work with you with your budget. So, bring all your bills to me. And sometimes we have a real mess and a real pile going on, but getting that settled and getting them, and I give them the first month. I don't do that. They need to settle in
Mm.
to, because sometimes you don't know how long that they have been actually homeless. I've been down to the riverside when they're sleeping in a tent where somebody has to hold my hand just to get down there,
Wow.
and then help me back up the embankment. So I try to meet them where they are.
Mm.
I have even had to go in and meet with them in the bar
Wow.
to talk to them and encourage them. Well, would you like to leave now? We can go somewhere else. I can get you some lunch. I have paid for more lunches on my own than I can count because they need to get some coffee and something to eat.
Wow.
So well, back to the question, how many, it varies, but that has been pretty consistent over the last 12 years, anywhere from 35 to 40 on my caseload. And I've done every aspect from the beginning because for my initiative, I'm the last person that was originally hired to work on this grant when we received it. So I've done outreach, case management, housing placement, as well as follow-up.
Mm.
I have clients that I've housed and exited and they're fine, but they still reach back just to let me know how they're doing. Or if they
Wow.
need a referral or they have some questions. Sometimes they just want to know how I'm doing, which is nice, so you built that relationship.
Right. So another question I have is, law enforcement have multiple responsibilities,
Yes.
and one of them is in responding to crises or crimes that might be committed. The other part of it is just finding people that are in crises. Is it the case that one of the other relationships you have is with either county sheriffs or police chiefs in the area that you have, and do they know you as well as the rest of the community does?
Yes, that is something I've worked really hard to build a relationship with my local law enforcement, and that's why I use my maiden name with
Mm.
work. That was the Cedar Rapids Police Department.
Oh,
We
I
would
see.
go
Okay.
out on work with them that they, as a safety measure, they didn't want me using my married name,
I
and
see.
two, nobody would be able to say it anyway. So, so yes, and I'm always, making sure they have my business card. I'm also a mental health first aid responder. So sometimes they will call to have me step in just to try and diffuse a situation. Um,
Yeah.
so yes, that is definitely a partnership. The VA, the veteran service officers in every county that I cover, they know that they can call me. Um, yeah, it's really important to build those. We have in Iowa City, we have a place called the R Place, which is a peer support for mental health services. And
Mm.
so I make sure that I try to stop in at least once a week
Mm.
to see who's there and how everyone's doing. That's also for civilians. Um, I don't mind talking to them, but I can't offer them any services except referrals.
Wow.
Where veterans, I can offer money.
So here's a scenario, or what I have found in the time that I've worked with folks. There are two things that make people humble. One is they're from Iowa, the other is they're Catholic. So my question to you is, besides the access to this recording, have you shared as much with your fellow parishioners in a formal setting so that they understand the extent to which you're involved in the community?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I probably, when we had our Eucharistic revival classes over the
Oh,
6 weeks, I probably had an opportunity to share a little bit more.
right,
But I haven't had an opportunity to really, my priest always seems to know what I do and and I
right,
appreciate that. But as far as the parishioners know, what I'm out there doing every day, and I get paid to work 8 hours a day, and I probably work 14 to 15 hours. My boss knows it. She tells me, you need to just flex out the time. I'm like, it's a little hard to do. Maybe on the weekends I get to flex. But I'm going to get the work done. And my clients know when they're in crisis, they don't know what day it is. They don't know what time it is. They're going to call me when they're in crisis, and they know I'm going to answer and
right.
to help them.
Yeah, and it's to say that, again, at the end of Mass, go and proclaim the gospel with according to with by your life. And so my whole point is that there's Deb in Mount Pleasant, and there are others who do so similarly in different parts. And if you were to take a look at the community safety net, there's a fair number from our faith tradition who are actually integrally involved in the community's contribution to it. And so um, that's why I was like, oh my gosh, this is November. It's Veterans Day. I'm
On
like
Monday,
filing it away from like the August or July or August while we're eating. I'm like, no, we got to bring you back in order for you to be able to step forward a little bit, set aside humility long enough to be able to talk about the mission that drives you. Um, and I also got to believe that for somebody that's lecturing, you don't lecture casually or lightly. So another question that I would pose is, how important is your faith to what you do in serving?
I would be nothing without my faith. I can't leave my house unless I have had my morning prayers, and I don't go to bed at night until I've said my nightly prayers. I have a rosary on me all the time. I've even been known to give my rosary away when someone expressed interest. I'm like, I can get another rosary. And I share when I can. I am Catholic. I let my veterans know I am my employers or my employer as well as my community partners. They know I am a Catholic. I've even had a few who have called me, a few veterans. I went to a mass. I didn't understand what was happening. So we had a conversation about what was happening, what they could do. I've offered to attend mass with them. If I always try to know where my nearest church is, wherever I am, if I need to go. So I'm was born and raised in Mount Pleasant in the Catholic faith, and I would never leave. It's everything to me, and it's how I do this job every single day, to go out and to meet people where they are and to not judge them and they feel comfortable telling me, when's the last time you smoked meth? Well, I did it this morning. Okay, how are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling better now, is what they say. So
Right,
they know I'm not going to judge them. They know they can tell me the truth. That's why when they're in a crisis, they call me and
right.
they know I'm going to answer. And I tell them, okay, so if I'm at mass, I won't be able to answer, but as soon as I'm done, I will give you a call back. So
Wow,
just be patient. Oh,
wow.
and many times I had a veteran that called me on Christmas Day, like, I don't know, 3 years ago, and somebody had shot at him and grazed the side of his head. But he called me. And I'm like, why are you calling me? Please go to the nearest ER. And he still keeps in contact with me. So it's I just put myself out there and try to be Jesus' hands and feet and eyes and
Yeah,
ears and mouth.
yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. I threw some questions at you that you had maybe not anticipated, Deb, but I also had a sense that there was the source of your inspiration and your means of doing so, because nobody would do what you've done for that many hours, that many years, and not have some wellspring of energy and inspiration. I I'm going to stop long enough. I want to make sure that if I see any additional messages, I'm going to take those into account. It's The other thing I would add to you, Deb, is as you may very well know, we have a new bishop, Dennis Walsh
Yes,
from
I
Toledo.
do.
Um, and one of the things that when, as part of his team, we kind of divide up and go in different directions. But the beauty of this particular conversation as it's recorded is that he will have access to it, as would any of the members of the clergy or the laity. It's a very valuable contribution you've made to us as far as the lunch and learn model. If I can, of the safety nets that you come in contact with, it's not specific to Mount Pleasant. What part of the safety net is weak that we need to be aware of with either the charity or the justice foot? And again, I'd ask you to step out of your formal role, but where you see people living at the margins of society, very vulnerable in this moment, what else is there that we need to be mindful of?
Oof, the needs are so much. I know that they're always looking for new clothes and new shoes. That's something that we've worked hard at the Veterans Liberty Center. We have a exercise room, we have showers, 2 new showers, and we just installed a washer and dryer.
Mm,
So just the laundry detergent and we're always needing shoes because the homeless, they walk a lot and
right.
they don't get much sleep. And now that winter's coming, they definitely need heavy coats and hats and mittens because even though the shelters open, there are some who, for whatever reason, can't go. Their PTSD doesn't allow them to. So we're always looking for tents. I'm always looking for cots. Um, I'm looking for food. Anything that something you use in your daily life,
Mm,
just know that the homeless veterans are also looking for that. Now, when somebody is in a family, I can get one new bed, but sometimes they have children. I can't
right,
get beds for the children. So
right.
sometimes they will get a big bed and let the children sleep with them. They need pots and pans and cooking supplies. The list becomes endless. I try to provide, the books that I have. Sometimes I'll just lay it on the table and see if somebody will pick it up and start looking at it. And you can have that. It's okay. You can take
Mm,
it. I'll ask them, do you like to read? And if they say yes, would you be interested in this? Sometimes they start the conversation, so I pick up on that and
mm,
try to meet them where they are.
mm.
Um,
Your comment was half prompted because this afternoon there's a grant review process that we undertake annually, St. Vincent Home. Uh, it's available for groups that are working with children living in poverty.
Mhm.
And one of the groups that has received funding in the past, what they've done is identified the outstanding need for children and beds. And so they assemble frames and provide beds to families that are living in poverty. And it's just an example of where if you have people who know of those types of needs, yes, and Lindsay Steele from the Messenger Sleep in Heavenly Peace is the organization. They started in Muscatine, they've expanded to the county, but that's where if you have people that are providing frontline support in the greater community and they know where else there are needs, it can be a much more targeted charitable response. Yeah, it's excellent. It's 45, quarter to the top of the hour. I'm gonna stop right now. I've not seen a whole lot of additional comments roll through. Deb, we've got your contact information for those
You do.
that are similar or close to where you are, but I just want to express my profound gratitude for the work you do, particularly in light of Veterans Day coming up. God bless you.
You.
Stay in touch, and we
Just
will.
know I'll be working on Veterans Day. My veterans know I come and see them. All my VA partners take the day off. I work that day.
Excellent.
And they know that I'm going to be seeing them.
Very
So
good.
it's a full day. But thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm just so honored to have shared.
Very good. Take care. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.